Possums, I need no introduction, but in case I do, my name is Dame Edna Everage. You know, I often find myself these days thinking about my past. Is it a sign of approaching middle age? Oh, because I am approaching middle age, Possums, from the wrong direction. In 1955, I was touring Victoria as a student actor, very seriously miscast in a production of Twelfth Night. It was a lovely company of players, including Ray Lawler, who had a preoccupied look on his face because he was writing, in the evenings after the show, a play called The Summer of the 17th Doll.
We were travelling around in the winter of 1955, and we travelled in what they called the Monster. It was a very large truck travelling from town to town doing one-night shows. It could be very dull, but Barry certainly made it lively.
From the back of the bus on these various journeys between Australian country towns, I used to give impersonations of the ladies who used to receive us after every performance. The time came, however, for our company, settled back in Melbourne, to create amongst us a Christmas show.
We wanted sketches and, of course, asked Barry if he had anything.
Ray said, "Why don't you do that woman you do in the back seat of the bus?" I said, "Oh, her." Ray said, "What's she called?" I said, "Well, she's called Edna," was the first name that came into my head, because I'd had a kind of nanny once called Edna. I wrote a little play in which a Melbourne housewife offered her lovely home to accommodate Olympic athletes.
My husband and I noticed in the paper the other day that you were still requiring couples to offer up their own homes for the accommodation of some of our migrants.
Your address, Mrs. Everage?
36 Humoresque Street, Moonee Ponds.
Barry did have doubts as to whether he should be appearing on stage playing a woman, but nobody took him seriously.
I played it very shy, almost cringing. I played it very dowdy, because after all, Mrs. Everage wasn't very well dressed.
When we grew up, it was fine to be a housewife. Every family had as their star their mum, who did it not because there was nothing better to do, but because it was the best thing to do.
I was a very happy housewife, and I created such a beautiful home for my husband and young family. It was in an area which, frankly, wasn't as nice as I could have wished for. And so Moonee Ponds was a little bit, well, working class. When the Olympic Games were looming in Melbourne, there was a lot of excitement. The difficulty was that there weren't enough hotels for the visitors to the Olympic Games. We'd pulled most of them down because they were ugly 19th century buildings. And we wanted something very modern to impress our visitors. And so housewives like me were asked if we would give up our spare bedrooms and sleep-outs to accommodate our visitors. I was one of the very first people to go into the Melbourne Town Hall and offer our lovely home in Moonee Ponds. We were fortunate enough, or unfortunate enough, as the case may be, to get a Latvian. He was an enormous man. He didn't speak a word of Australian, and I always find with foreigners, the best way to communicate is to just say whatever you want to say in your own language as loudly as possible. I won the Lovely Mother competition and a trip overseas. It was a fairy tale trip. I came back to Australia. I knew that I would have to do something that I've learnt is the most important thing a woman can do, and that is put your family last. I bumped into this fellow Barry Humphries. Now, he's not the sort of person I would have met in the normal course of events, and in many ways I wish I'd never met him. But he was doing a little show in Melbourne, and he wanted to do what was called a send-up. He said, "Look, would you do something on the stage in my show?" He was being a bit patronising, and I said, well, what do you think? I did a little recitation. It created a sensation. And I was a star overnight in a small way. And so my career in the theatre took off.